Broadcasting live from the Newsmax studio in New York City, here is Steve Malzberg.
Let me end tonight with this strange absence of a challenger to Hillary Clinton. I'm not talking about a Democrat contesting her in the primaries. That's a situation I don't expect to persist. I think real candidates on the Democratic side will come forward to give her a run for it. I think Mitt Romney is thinking about this every day, thinking about how close he came in 12, how close he could be to winning in 16. I think Mitt will run for the same reason Hillary Clinton will run. You don't go this far and stop.
All right, folks, I don't know about that, but joining us now to talk about, Hillary and a bunch of other things is liberal columnist, syndicated political cartoonist, and author Ted Rall. Hey, Ted.
Hey, Steve.
Good to talk to you. Good to see you. So let's talk about Hillary, and let's talk about the Democratic Party. You wrote a piece talking at Rall.com, your website, talking about how progressives need to, as you put it, grow a pair and stop having anything to do with the Democratic Party. Now, it's interesting because I had a great conversation about progressives yesterday, and there's a great book out there called Liberal Fascism, which really, in my view, defines who progressives are, who they have always been, and what do you define as a progressive?
Well, I think that people on the right and the author of that book have a different definition of perhaps...
Jonah Goldberg, but go ahead.
Right. They have different definitions of progressivism than most Democrats and progressives do. But progressive Democrats are basically the liberal wing of the Democratic Party, the McGovern Democrats, the people who still kind of believe the Democratic Party lost its way after the Jimmy Carter, Bill Clinton years, the DLC influenced Dick Morris triangulation period centered around the Southern Democratic governors kind of approach that started with Jimmy Carter. These are people who are very pro-union, pro-labor, for whom environmentalism, women's rights are very important, but as opposed to the identity politics liberals that dominate the party today and are more concerned about things like gay rights and marriage equality, these are more old-fashioned liberals who are concerned about what's in your wallet, the income inequality, poverty, class issues, the growing gap between rich and poor, militarism, wars of choice. Those are the kinds of things that most progressives sort of sets them apart from the mainstream Barack Obama wing of the Democratic Party.
And you know, it's interesting you say that, because I don't think there's anything mainstream. I mean, in and of itself, you might consider the Democratic Party that to be the mainstream wing of it. But on issue after issue, policy after policy, the nation disagrees with Barack Obama on policy. Not only believes he's not trustworthy and they say that he's doing a bad job, but they feel that the next presidential candidate needs to have policies that differ from this president. So you call him, I mean, I would say he's at least your definition of progressive. I mean, all he does is demagogue the supposed wage inequality, and you didn't build that, and we're going to spread the wealth around, and you don't think he's progressive? You put him in the same category as Hillary Clinton?
In many ways, they have a lot in common. Yes, he absolutely talks a good game about the 1% versus the 99%, but there's no delivery there. I mean, after the 2008 economic collapse, that's the event that should have been Obama's 9/11, that should have defined his presidency. And instead, he turned over the economy to Goldman Sachs and Wall Street, and thus inspired the Occupy movement. I mean, let's not forget that after Obama came to power, he inspired the Tea Party on the right, but he also inspired Occupy on the left. There is a critique of Obama that comes from the left as well, and that is every bit as angry as what is on the right. And in some cases, there's kind of a crossover, and I hope we get to talk a little bit about Rand Paul as in conjunction with 2016, because I think he's a really interesting example of that crossover. I mean, the critique on the left is particularly related to foreign policy. The involvement in Libya and Syria makes progressives very uncomfortable. We don't like that. We didn't like the surge in Iraq. We don't like the troops that are going back to Iraq now. We don't like the involvement in Afghanistan. We don't like Guantanamo still being open. We don't like the NSA spying that Obama ratcheted up. We don't like the drone wars that he radically expanded over Bush.
Let me ask you a question, and you've been, not to interrupt, I get the picture, and you've been very critical of the press, and I do want to get to Rand Paul. In the previous hour on our segment Road to the White House, we talked at length about Rand Paul and his possible candidacy, so I do want to go there with you. But the media, when it was George Bush doing some of these things, the media and the left, the activists, they called him, the media didn't call him a murderer, but the left called him a murderer and every other name in the book. The media killed him. Where's the media criticism? Where are your leftist friends now going after Barack Obama for more drone use, more targeted killings, et cetera, than Bush has ever did before? Where are they all?
Well, they're not on MSNBC. People like me don't get invited on MSNBC for a reason.
So we have a lot in common.
I'm just saying it's, Rachel Maddow had to move way to the right. She had to become a militant Democrat in order to join MSNBC. Al Sharpton had to become a militant Democrat to join MSNBC and abandoned his progressive roots. So in order to join, that clip from Chris Matthews that you played at the top of the show kind of indicates that. Let's not conflate the left and the Democrats. The Democrats are ignoring the left. That was the topic of my column that you referred to, and the left is very angry at the Democratic Party. We're very marginalized, even though we're the base of the Democratic Party.
So there's no left in the media. So there's no left in the media. There's no left on MSNBC. You would call the folks on MSNBC what?
Democrats. They're Democrats. Look, there's a wide range of political opinions in the United States that are not reflected in the mainstream media, and that includes on the right. Libertarianism until pre-Rand Paul was basically not allowed to have a voice even on Fox News, so we have the Democrats and the Republicans are very close together on a lot of issues. I can go through them. For example, free trade. Most Americans don't like these free trade agreements, and that includes both liberals and conservatives, but both major parties are in favor of them. But the critiques come from their left and from the right for nationalistic reasons, patriotic reasons, and also on the left because of what it's doing to drive down wages and hurt workers.
All right, but I want to get to Rand Paul next, but one more question on the media here. So the same media that took George W. Bush to task for lesser things in certain respects, when Obama does them, they're silent, and that's why?
I agree with your critique 100%. It's disgusting, and many people on the left find it repugnant that the mainstream media is so pro-democratic, and they don't criticize Obama for doing many of the same things that Bush did, and worse. The drones, NSA, he's much worse on those things. And Guantanamo, come on. He's still blaming Republicans for that all these years later. It's ridiculous.
All right, let's talk about Rand Paul. What's obviously a libertarian, obviously out of sync with many in his party on foreign policy and some other issues, but still gets very high marks when it comes to the preliminary polls, and is a serious contender for the presidency, or at least the Republican nomination at this point. What's your take on Rand Paul?
I think Rand Paul is underestimated. Right now, if I had money to put down in the Iowa straw poll, I would put it on Rand to win in November against Hillary. Now, of course, it's an eternity between now and November 2016, or for that matter, between now and the two conventions in the summer of 16. But right now, I think it would be hard to beat Rand. I think he hits a sweet spot that Republicans are not thinking about. A lot of Democrats, a lot of liberals, a lot of progressives really dislike Hillary Clinton. They don't like her, the fact that she's in the pockets of Wall Street and Goldman Sachs.
Let me ask you, because of time. You don't like her. I get that impression.
A lot of people don't.
Right. Would you vote for Rand Paul?
He's the first Republican that I've ever considered voting for. But what I was going to say is that the factor that's important for Rand is not so much Democrats voting for him. It's more, although that could happen with the under 30 crowd. But what could happen is a lot of Democrats might stay home and sit on their hands, which would still have the effect of helping Rand Paul. I mean, if you nominate Jeb Bush, you're going to get a lot more Democrats voting against Jeb Bush than you will get voting against Rand Paul. On the left, we're not afraid of Rand, but we would be disgusted by a third Bush presidency.
And you would like to see, we have no time, but just basically a yes or no, Elizabeth Warren or Bernie Sanders run against Hillary?
It's a waste. Elizabeth Warren isn't running. Bernie Sanders would run a poorly funded, symbolic...
Then can anybody run against Hillary on the Democrat side?
At this point, there's no chance.
All right. Hey, Ted, great to talk to you, sir. We'll have you back soon. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, Ted Rall, ladies and gentlemen. And when we come back, more interesting. It's called Give Me Five, You Know It, You Love It, and it's next on the Steve Malzberg Show on Newsmax Television.